Let me ask you something. When you think about the absolute greatest danger to a person's faith today, what comes to mind? Well, the source material we're looking at argues the answer isn't something obvious. It's not intense persecution, it's not immense suffering, and it's definitely not some sudden tragic loss of belief. No, it is something much more subtle, way more pervasive, and frankly, a whole lot harder to detect in our daily routines. The answer is distraction. Yep, distraction. The text literally calls it the enemy's quietest weapon. Millions of people are drifting away from their faith right now, but the source makes this absolutely critical distinction. They aren't leaving because they suddenly woke up and hated God. Actually, they are simply highly distracted. They're endlessly entertained, constantly scrolling, constantly chasing that next promotion. The core premise here is that the enemy doesn't need to mount some massive frontal assault to destroy a person's belief. He just needs to keep them distracted long enough to slowly, quietly pull their eyes away. It's a strategy of attrition. And the scariest part, most people don't even realize it's happening. Our explainer anchors this whole argument in Matthew 13:22. The source really zeroes in on this imagery of the thorns. Think about it. The seed planted was inherently good. The word was actually there. But it wasn't uprooted by some sudden bout of atheism or a major philosophical crisis. No, it was choked out. And by what exactly? The text says it's the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth. Good intentions and deep faith are literally choked out by the sheer, overwhelming volume of everyday distractions. It's a powerful reminder of this fundamental rule. Whatever consistently holds your attention is eventually going to shape your entire heart. Okay, so let's get into part one, the silent threat of distraction. To show how this actually plays out in real life, the source gives us this brilliant contrast between two very different kinds of storms. Take the ancient biblical story of Peter walking on water. The text points out that the exact moment Peter maintained his focus, he achieved the impossible. But literally the exact second, his attention shifted to the wind and the crashing waves, he started to sink. Fear and noise completely replaced his faith. Now contrast that with a crazy modern anecdote shared in the text about a restaurant owner. This owner was dealing with severe delays in customer turnover. So they go to review the security footage, and guess what? The problem wasn't the kitchen staff at all. The customers were practically paralyzed by their phones. They were taking pictures, texting, totally ignoring their food, and holding up the entire restaurant. It's exactly like Peter sinking in the storm. We become delayed, stuck, and spiritually sink because we're just bombarded by notifications. We literally stop engaging with what is right in front of us. Moving right along to part two, when good things become idols. This next point completely blew my mind. The source makes this fascinating claim. An idol isn't necessarily a golden statue or even some inherently evil habit. It can simply be a perfectly good thing. We're talking about a flourishing career, a super meaningful relationship, ambitious personal goals, even charity work. But it becomes an idol when it quietly takes absolute center stage. The danger isn't in the activity itself. The danger is in the priority. Everyday, completely positive endeavors can become spiritually destructive when they subtly shift our primary focus away from our foundational values. To really drive this home, the text points to a terrifyingly short three-word warning from Luke 17:32. Remember Lot's wife. The source explains that Lot's wife was actively being rescued from a collapsing city, but her heart was still entirely attached to the world she was supposed to be leaving behind. She hesitated, she looked back, and in one fraction of a second, her distraction became her absolute destruction. The author points out something so relatable here. A lot of people genuinely want spiritual rescue. We want peace, we want heaven, but we kind of want it without fully surrendering our current attachments, right? We want to hold on to the world's validations and keep looking over our shoulder. And the hidden danger outlined here is that the things you repeatedly look back at are eventually going to pull you backward. Which brings us to part three, the drift into spiritual numbness. So, how does this actually happen? Walking away from faith, as the text describes it, is rarely some sudden, dramatic event. It's this slow, almost invisible fade. It starts with step one. Prayer becomes shorter. You don't necessarily stop praying entirely, you just sort of rush it, right? Gotta get to the next thing on the to-do list. Then, step two. Worship becomes a mere routine. It completely loses its passion. You're just going through the motions. Which leads right into step three. Conviction becomes weaker. The things that used to genuinely bother your conscience, suddenly they don't seem like such a big deal. You start to rationalize them. And finally, step four. sin becomes easier. Before you even realize what's happened, your core has grown spiritually cold. The text is super clear about this. Spiritual decay never, ever happens accidentally. It is the direct result of what you feed your mind every single day. If you feed the noise, the spirit weakens. The source definitely doesn't pull any punches regarding this gradual fade, citing James 4:4 to argue that friendship with the world is enmity with God. Now, I know that sounds like a really extreme statement, but the author explains that this just reflects how profoundly dangerous a tiny compromise can become over time. The fundamental argument here: a distracted believer is a powerless believer, and a powerless believer completely loses their ability to positively influence the world around them. When you're numbed by society's endless competition for your attention, constantly chasing money, status, or whatever gives you that quick hit of dopamine, the scary truth is you can successfully gain all of those things and still wind up feeling completely broken and empty inside. But hey, the source doesn't leave us hanging in the dark. Part 4, Turning Back to Christ. The narrative makes a major shift here to a highly redemptive message. It objectively weighs the upfront costs against the eternal benefits. Let's be real. Yes, turning back and refocusing might actually cost you something. It might cost you some comfortable but sinful habits. It might cost you toxic relationships that are secretly holding you back. It might even cost you worldly approval and popularity. Following this path absolutely requires letting go of certain comforts. But look at what the text says you gain: deep intimacy with God, eternal life, and true peace. A profound kind of peace that a chaotic, distraction-heavy world simply cannot manufacture for you. The text brings up the story of the prodigal son to emphasize this beautiful point. No matter how distracted a person has been, the exact moment they actively choose to return, they are met with grace. When that focus finally shifts, everything, from your internal peace to your external purpose, completely transforms. All right, final section, part 5, Staying Alert Today. The text paints a pretty sobering picture of our modern reality. We are living in an era that is incredibly spiritually dangerous, precisely because it feels so darn comfortable. Think about it. People are constantly entertained by a screen in their pocket, yet they report feeling completely empty inside. We brag about being more connected online than any generation in human history, but simultaneously we're experiencing this profound disconnection from deeper spiritual truths. We are so busy running endlessly from task to task, but we remain totally spiritually asleep to the things that actually matter. The big argument here is that this is absolutely not the time to just drift along comfortably. It's a loud call to actively push back against the noise, stay in the Word, and remain spiritually awake. So we're going to wrap up this explainer with a lingering challenge straight from the source material. What distraction is pulling your heart away? Seriously, what exactly is competing for your attention today? The text invites us all into a moment of really deep evaluation, because in a modern world, specifically engineered by algorithms to keep you looking absolutely anywhere else, well, it might just be time to stop, take a step back, and evaluate exactly where your eyes are fixed.
And don't forget to subscribe for more Faith message.